Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our fireside chat with the Dean of the Ivey School of Business at the University of Western Ontario. Let me introduce her. Her name is Sharon Hodgson, and she is a little bit different as a dean because she has a total corporate background and a very distinguished one, as opposed to being a traditional academic. She spent a good number of years in the consulting industry, first with Anderson Consulting and then PwC. Among her big clients were Merck and Nestle. She's well traveled around the world. She ended up at IBM in Canada running the Canadian business, and she's been dean of Ivey for 2.5 years. Quite a career. Welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Ivy. You know, the thing that really strikes me, of course, is it's a quintessential case study school, and there aren't all that many out there other than Harvard, UVA, Darden, IESC in Barcelona. Um, and the case method is such a strong way to teach business.
Yeah, so a little bit of background about Ivey. So first of all, we're part of the University of Western Ontario, recently renamed Western University. It's a residential university, part of the U15 in Canada, and which are the top research institutions in Canada. And Ivey's the business school within Western. And we're located in London, Ontario, not London, England. I want to emphasize that. And just for people who don't know, London, Ontario is about halfway between Toronto and Detroit, 2 hours in either direction to get here. And you mentioned our case-based method. So we started our programming we're actually the first business school in Canada. And our MBA launched in 1950, and it has always been a case-based method way of teaching. And it's actually fundamental to sort of what we care about. We care about real world leadership. And whenever you look up anything about Ivey or anybody talks about Ivey, it is real world leadership. We use that case method to make sure that we give our students that experience of solving real business problems in real situations in that collaborative environment that is designed by a case-based method of teaching.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what kind of connection is there to the broader university? I know that a lot of schools are exploring more interdisciplinary work between and among colleges and departments. Is that true at your school?
I would say the biggest thing so the two big pieces of the interconnection, and Western as a university has made it a strategic priority to start to drive interdisciplinarity across the organization. But the big thing's entrepreneurship. So we have a big entrepreneurship program at Ivey, and there's been significant investment to make sure that those entrepreneurship skills are brought in from all the different disciplines of our university. So that's one of the major areas where we have been focused. Another big area that we're just starting to tap into materially is around AI and data analytics. And we have some co-curricular activities related to bringing in analytics, artificial intelligence, and working with the engineering group as well.
Right. In terms of your own strategic priorities for the school, what might they be?
So we will continue to focus on the real world leadership aspects of this. But for me, I think that there's lots of changes that are happening. And you think about the disruption that's happened in higher ed and the disruption that's happening in the nature of work. There's a couple of big things that we're looking at. So I would say the biggest one, and you alluded to case teaching, so I'll start with that, is we're really starting to investigate what does case teaching 2.0 look like? And, you know, cases have been a very traditional way of teaching, but technology will allow us to really think about new ways to give students that experiential learning. And, you know, I would love it if we were putting in cases where, you know, I say, put on your VR glasses. I'm going to take you into a boardroom and show you what was happening in this situation. Or, you know, we want to talk about a supply chain problem or even a manufacturing ops problem. Let me beam you there so that you can start to see this. And all that context comes together in so much more real way And I think it really will help to enhance the experience. So that's one of the big areas that we're exploring. I think another big area that we see is with the changing nature of work and how frequently people are changing jobs now, or how frequently the nature of an existing job is changing and how they're using technology to solve problems, is we really want, as part of our program, to make sure students understand that they need to be intellectual athletes, that while you're here, you're learning, and you're learning every single day. When you're on the job, you need to be thinking about that just as much. And think about, with every career change, what is the teachable moment? What is the thing that you need to learn in that period to be able to get you ready for that next phase? And this gets us into that whole lifelong learning and how you engage in learning throughout your career. So be adaptable, be resilient, always be learning.
That's great. I wonder, one of the things I love to do is when I visit a campus to sit down with students and ask them what are the hallmarks of the program that they're in, what will resonate with them far beyond graduation. And I wonder what your students might say.
I think the biggest thing is the classroom experience and the connection that they create. So coming along with the case-based method of learning and the whole Socratic method is the engagement that they have in the class and the level of participation that they have, and the networks that are created in that, how they learn to be collaborative problem solvers. What we see with our students is they come in sometimes, we look for people who already have some of that basic leadership experience, but the level of confidence from when they come in to when they leave, in terms of how do I add value into a conversation? How do I drive effective decision making? And how do I do that in a collaborative way that is going to really move the needle? And what is it going to take to solve a very complex business problem? Our domains are very broad here in terms of the areas that we cover in terms of competency skills, but it's also focused on EQ and how you engage in a conversation and bring people along to get the best out of a conversation and get the best decisions you can.
Right. Now, you're a product of a 2-year MBA program at Wharton. And I know that Ivey has a 1-year MBA program, which is quite accelerated and pretty intense. So can you speak to how, how fast-paced your MBA program is?
Yeah, our MBA program is 1 year. We changed that, I think it was around 2005. And we did that with a lot of consultation with our alumni, with students who are considering the program, and also with our recruiters, because we wanted to make sure that it was the right time to do this. We really think that the value proposition of a 1-year MBA is markedly better than a 2-year MBA in terms of the investment that students are taking out of their career to be able to come back and learn. So it is a very, very intense 12 months. 50% of the program is core, 50% is elective. The students are engaged in many co-curricular activities as well as their base curriculum. But we have seen that our students, because of their already having the experience that they have before they arrive, that 1 year is actually been much more compelling. And by the way, I think we're one of the only 1-year MBA programs that exist in Canada today. And all of our MBAs, not just our regular MBA, our accelerated MBA, which is our digital by design MBA, our executive MBA is also 1 year, and some of our MSc programs a little bit longer, 16 months.
Right, great. I noticed that you had a very big conference on leadership just before the pandemic hit in February of last year. And I know obviously that leadership development has become a very important part of the MBA experience, above and beyond traditional knowledge and the business basics. So I wonder, what's the school's general philosophy on leadership? And I noticed that you use a particular phrase when discussing leadership, and it's leadership character, which is something I've never really heard before. I wonder if you could talk a little bit through that.
You bet. So as you mentioned, the main focus of our program is building real world leaders and real world leadership. if you look into the sort of the research that Ivey has been involved with, we do spend a lot of time on character. And we have many researchers who focus on the idea that leadership and really good leadership is as much about competency as it is about character. Character is very important in this decision making. And in fact, the research that was done was looking at the 2008 financial crisis and what caused some of those challenges. And it really got down to character much more than it did to competencies. All those leaders were very competent in their skills, but it was just how they reflected on character. So we do spend a lot of time in our program talking about character. You mentioned the conference just before the pandemic. We have with our MBAs multiple conferences throughout the year where we spend time talking about leader character. Let me give you one really great example of what we did during the pandemic. We instituted a new program that's called Teachable Moments. And what we did is we brought in CEOs from across Canada and had them come in and talk about how they were navigating the pandemic and drawing out from those conversations what elements of character were being used and displayed to actually make the or run their businesses during these very challenging times. Also, all of our students get a assessment of their leader character when they come into the program, and we work on different ways to actually, deal with the different, where do you rank in terms of resilience? Where do you rank in terms of temperance? What are some tools that you can have to develop better temperance? And also, don't overturn, right? A really great feature that can be a virtue can become a vice at some point and become problematic, and we don't want to have them over assess on some areas.
Right. Now, I imagine, though, that many MBAs enter a program thinking about the end goal. I want to work in a specific role. I have a certain career path I want to achieve. And they probably don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about what kind of person and leader do they want to develop into and how business school can help in that process. So I wonder if you have any advice for students about that journey, that leadership journey that they're going to go through in your MBA program.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to sort of look at where people get placed and make a conclusion about which business school that you want to go to. Today, about 40% of our graduates end up in financial institutions or in consultancy. However, we don't love it when they come in with that end game in mind, because we actually want them to spend the time to understand what makes them a great leader and where those great leadership skills might take them, and to be very open-minded about where they want to go. We talk about the transformational experience that you go through at Ivey, and our goal is for students to come out of the program with a really good idea of not just what's going to be their next job, but their next, what is that career journey going to look like to really leverage your skills the best and make you the most happy.
Right. Yep. And that's a really important thing to learn, and also to be a little patient, right? I mean, it's 1 year goes by fast, and I'm sure there's just a good amount of concern about, okay, I gotta make stuff happen really quickly. So to get them to sort of sit back and be truly introspective must be quite challenging.
Right. But I think, really drawing on that aspect of leader character and starting to understand all those different elements of your leader character and how you use those things to play off of and to how to build up things like adaptability, resilience. We've got a great program. People say, can you actually build resilience? We think you can. And we have a program called Leadership Under Fire, which is something we do in collaboration with the military. And we bring students into a 5-day format where they are put into very, very high pressure situations, and they've got to make decisions. And sometimes they're the leader, sometimes they're the follower. How do you actually work through a problem in the real world where you've got a short period of time to make decisions, to command troops, so to speak, to get people through and get them through a situation safely?
Yeah. And this past year, for all of higher education, resilience has certainly been challenged. I wonder how Ivey, sort of made the move forward during COVID. And of course, we're still in COVID, and it's in varying degrees in different parts of the world. Um, but I wonder if were there choices made or decisions taken in response to the pandemic that are now being implemented permanently, and how did the school do through this period?
So the school did really, really well. Demand for our program has never been stronger than what we're seeing right now. So, and the quality of the students continues to be exceptional. So, fingers crossed. I know that's not the case for many MBA programs around the world. And so we feel very fortunate about that. We were online, and we were online, offline many times over the course of the last year because of various outbreaks that have happened. And I suspect many people were in the same situation.
Mhm.
We made a number of changes to the program. The first one, which I alluded to before, was this concept of teachable moments, where we said, this is a wonderful time to see how to do crisis management in action and to bring in CEOs from across the country to share their experiences and how they were navigating through the pandemic. I also think it was really good because students locked up in London, Ontario, maybe didn't have the sense of really what was going out in the business world. So that was one big piece that we did, and we will continue to do that. And that's actually something you learn from Zoom. You can Zoom in a lot more people. CEOs maybe won't fly or come out to London, Ontario very easily, but they certainly will Zoom in to have those conversations. We also changed the way that we recruit, and we got access to a much broader set of organizations that were interested in talking to our candidates because of the nature of being online and the quick access. So that was a big piece. The third thing that we focused on, so we were already focused more on this values-based leadership. We got more focused on values-based leadership and just starting to think about what that means in terms of leader character was another huge component of this. And then no surprise, many of the schools also got much more focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and making sure that our students understand what it means to practice sustainable equity and what are the things that they need to think about in terms of how they design a classroom experience, how they bring their peers into a situation and a setting that makes it feel like a welcoming environment and makes it feel like there's value that's associated with having these different diverse opinions reflected.
Right. Now, Sharon, you mentioned earlier how you're exploring the use of VR for case method teaching. I wonder if there were advances in the use of technology during the pandemic that you intend to continue in the future.
Yeah, and so I should correct you. I told you this is what I want to do. We do not have VR in the classroom yet, but that's certainly something that's of interest to me. We are doing lots of simulations and lots of, so we're on our way, but we're not quite to the VR stage yet. So we were actually really fortunate as an organization in January of 20, before COVID hit. We launched our Accelerated MBA, and our Accelerated MBA is a one-year while you work designed to be 40% asynchronous, 60% synchronous. So as part of that process, we had to build a number of digital assets that were going to be used for an asynchronous experience. Our faculty did an extraordinary job on that. And when COVID hit and we had to actually switch to everybody being remote for a period of time, those faculty that had moved quickly in the AMBA world picked up their digital assets and said, okay, how do I help the rest of the faculty understand how to build these and put these in front of our students as asynchronous with some of the Zoom classroom experience. So I think we adapted very quickly, and the feedback from the students has been very positive. And by the way, we're going to use some of these materials even going forward with our regular MBA, because there's, when you do it digital by design, which is what we did in the AMBA, versus digital by default, which is what we all had to do in that 3 days when we quickly had to switch. The digital by design can be an extraordinary experience. It can't be all of the experience. I don't think we're ever going to be a fully online university or offer a fully online program, but there is lots that we can use from a technology perspective to help in learning.
Right. And there is a lot of discussion right now about the future of the MBA and the value of the degree. And I think that's something that kind of crops up every now and then. What's your view of that? Do you think the degree is as valuable as it once was, or even when you got it back in the late 1990s at Wharton? And what about the future?
Yeah, I do think that the MBA is still a very valuable degree, but it isn't for everybody. I think that there are some individuals who really want to deepen their skills on very specific, they want to get that basic management foundation, but they still want to drive to deepen their skills in, say, business analytics or in how to lead in a digital environment. And we've designed programs to be able to pick up on those. But the base MBA and the development of those leadership skills that we do is still incredibly valued. And you can see that in where our students end up. And we don't just focus on where they land right when they start. We focus and we talk to recruiters, how quickly did they move through the organization? And what was it about our students that helped them to be more successful? They say our students are among the most adaptable because of the skills that they get in the MBA program. So I do think it's still valuable. And where it's going to go, well, I think we're going to have more digital in the classroom. For one, you've heard my idea of case teaching 2.0. I think there's going to be a lot more focus on digital fluency. And so let me give you a little bit more on what I'm talking about when I say that. I don't think it's going to be our base MBA where you're going to get deep Python skills or learn how to code an AI solution. But what the program needs to do is make sure that our students are learning how to leverage technology to solve business problems. And I'd like to say it's that tango, right? So if you're thinking about AI or a robot, what is the robot good at resolving? And what is it that a human is good at solving? And how do we work in tango with that system to make sure we make the best decisions? And also understand the limitations of those solutions, who trained them, and what might be some of the challenges that we might have using a tool like that. That's when I say digital fluency, that's what I mean. And so those are the types of things I think are going to be important to our future students. And I also mentioned intellectual athletes. That's another big one for us is
Right.
you got to be a learner for life.
And Sharon, I think that you spent a good amount of your time in the corporate world on digital transformation. I wonder what your perspective is on where business schools in general are on that journey.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say for all business schools because I'm a newbie into this industry. But I think Ivey's got some work to do around digital transformation. I think there's lots of opportunity that we've got to bring digital into the classroom. We already use it for much of the client experience and the engagement with the student. AMBA is a great example of how we've leveraged that the tools to support digital engagement. But I could see AI being a bigger part of our classroom engagement as well. Why not help the AI, have an AI solution that's supporting the faculty to help them to understand what's happening in a classroom, who's paying attention, who do you need to ask a question of, because you're watching their eyes and maybe their eyes are glossing over because they've lost interest in a conversation. Those are the types of things I think we can leverage a lot more of.
And it's interesting to me that you chose a blended approach. Why not do an all online MBA?
Connections. We really do believe that connectedness is a very important aspect of our programming. And, when you're all asynchronous, you also don't get that Socratic method, right? So we want to make sure that the students are still together enough to continue with collective problem solving, learning how to persuade people, but also learning how to be persuaded. That is a in-person, or maybe it's in Zoom in this case, skill that needs to be developed. And when you're developing EQ, you can't develop EQ sitting by yourself looking at a video.
Yeah, that's really true. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, lovely to be with you. Looking forward to meeting you in person someday soon.
So am I. I've got to come to Ivy. I got to check it out. I've got to sit in those classrooms and experience the case study teaching there.
Well, maybe by the time you get here, we'll be doing some case teaching 2.0, and we'll put you on some VR glasses so you
Wow,
can.
that would
learn
really
this
be
stuff.
cool. I would love that. That would be sensational. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you so much.
There. Bye.
All right. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You've been watching our Fireside Chat with the Dean of the Ivey School of Business at Western University in Canada, London, Canada, not London, United Kingdom. Thank you, Sharon Hodgson, for your perspective, your insights, and your predictions on how the MBA will evolve over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Lovely to be here. Bye-bye.